They warned us it would be the worst fire season in decades, but no one could have predicted what burned beneath the surface. I'm not talking about dry roots or fallen timber. I'm talking about them. About what I saw in the forest when the flames swallowed everything I thought I knew. My name? Thomas Grady, and I was a senior park ranger at Dry Hollow National Forest in Oregon. Now, I'm the only one who made it out. At least, I think I did. It started like any other shift. Reports came in about a lightning strike near the South Ridge, and within an hour, smoke spirals were curling into the sky like claws. By sundown, the horizon was on fire. The evacuation orders went out fast, and most of the rangers cleared out to help with the civilian evacuations, but I stayed behind to make sure no campers were trapped deeper in. And that was my first mistake. Dry Hollow wasn't known for heavy foot traffic, but some off-the-grid types like to hole up out here. I had my ATV, a satellite radio, and weeks' worth of rations. Also, I had an unhealthy amount of optimism. I set off around dusk, the smoke already thick enough to stain the sun red. That red turned darker with every passing mile, like the forest was bleeding into the sky. I told myself I could be back by morning. I was so wrong. At first, it was just the usual eerie silence that comes with fires. Birds flee, insects vanish. The only sound is wind and the distant crackle of flames. But then I started seeing signs that didn't make sense. Charred trees forming almost perfect circles, branches bent upward like twisted fingers, and claw marks, too high on the trunks to be from any animal I knew. By the time I reached the eastern gorge, I lost radio contact. Static only. I wasn't too worried, yet. I figured the smoke was jamming signals. I parked the ATV and hiked down into the valley where campers sometimes pitched illegal tents. That's when the sun disappeared completely, even though it wasn't even nighttime yet. The smoke was too thick, and the air was too heavy. Breathing? It felt like sucking on a burlap soaked in gasoline. Still, I pressed on. I found the first sign of people at the edge of a creek. A collapsed tent, melted plastic, scorched marks on the rocks, but no bodies, no gear, just a single hiking boot placed neatly in the center of a blackened circle. It looked deliberate, like someone had set it there on purpose. That was the first time I felt watched. As I turned to scan the ridgeline, I saw them. Figures, just silhouettes at first, gaunt, too tall, unmoving. I thought it was smoke tricks, like optical illusions from all the heat and the fire. I shouted, but they didn't respond. And then they moved. Not like walking, but gliding. 1 second they were still, and then the next, they were halfway down the ridge. So, I did what any normal man would do. I ran. Night fell fast. I remember stumbling, choking on ash, lighting my flashlight only to catch something whip past the edge of the beam. No footsteps, no animal sounds, just the groan of trees, like the forest itself was in pain. I set up a quick camp near a dried-up riverbed and tried to convince myself it was a heat stroke. Smoke hallucinations? Stress. That's what I said. That was my second mistake. I didn't sleep that night. I heard things. Soft crying. A baby? Maybe. Then whispers. In the trees. No, listen. Not through the trees. In the trees. Like the bark itself had lungs. Every time I turned my light on, the forest looked still, silent, dead. But when the light was off, I could hear the forest breathing. Sometime after midnight, the temperature dropped. Dropped. In a fire zone. My breath fogged up. The trees nearby had frost on their branches. I swear on my life, I saw ice forming in the dirt while the forest burned around me. That's when I saw the first one up close. It stepped out from behind a pine that had been burning moments before. 8 feet tall, skin like charred meat stretched over bone. Its eyes glowed orange like coals, but the worst part was its mouth. Open, slack, with smoke pouring out of it like it was breathing fire in reverse. It didn't look at me. Not at first. It just stood there, twitching. I couldn't move. I couldn't blink. Then, its head snapped towards me, like it heard something only it could hear. No sound, no warning, just movement. And again, I ran. I left everything behind. Pack, radio, maps, just my flashlight and a sidearm. Useless, both of them. The woods had changed. Paths I knew for 20 years no longer existed. Trees rearranged. Hills that weren't there before. I kept moving, hoping the smoke would give me cover. But they lived in the smoke. They stalked me for hours, maybe even days. I don't know anymore. Time was gone. They whispered my name. They mimicked voices of people I knew. My mother, my old partner, even my own voice. Once, I followed the sound of my captain's voice calling my name, only to find my own pack hanging from a branch, my badge melted into the bark. It was taunting me. The deeper I went, the worse it got. Fire doesn't spread like that. It grew against the wind, burning in patterns, spirals, symbols, circles. I began seeing things etched into trees, glyphs that pulsed when I looked at them. They weren't burned in. They were grown into the bark. And the creatures multiplied. Not all were the same. Some were hunched, all limbs in smoke, crawling like spiders made of soot. Others were human-shaped, but faceless, and their skin steamed in the firelight. One time, I came across a clearing where dozens of them stood perfectly still, facing the sky, mouths open, singing. But there was no sound, just flames moving unnaturally around them like wind through reeds. I begged for death more than once. I'm not ashamed to say it. I tried to shoot myself. I pulled the trigger. The gun clicked. Every time, it clicked, fully loaded. I checked it. I tried again. Click, click, nothing. They wouldn't even let me die. Eventually, I stopped running and just watched. I sat at the edge of a burned meadow and watched them build something out of fire. It wasn't a structure. It was a tear, like they were opening something, pulling reality apart. I saw shadows crawl out of that rip and slither into the soil. The trees bent toward it, like it was gravity. I think they came from beneath. There were bones in the roots, human bones, old, and newer ones. Some still had ranger uniforms. One had my name tag. And that's when I realized I'd never left. I remembered walking into the woods weeks ago. Not days, weeks. I remembered calling for help, but no one answering. I remembered sleeping under trees that had no shadows, eating food that tasted like ash, drinking water that reflected things that weren't in the sky. And the creatures began to speak, not with mouths, with heat. I would feel burning in my chest, and their thoughts would enter like a branding iron.
Witness. Remember. Tell them.
These thoughts would say. Tell who? I collapsed at some point. The fire circled me but didn't touch. They surrounded me, watching, waiting. I think they let me go. Or maybe I escaped. I woke up 3 miles from the highway, burned, dehydrated and rambling. A hiker found me. They called in an evac chopper. The hospital said I had 3rd-degree burns, lungs coated in ash. They said I was lucky. I was not lucky. I was chosen. They visit me in my dreams now. When I close my eyes, I see the forest burning. Not from above, but beneath. Like the fire was the skin of something much deeper. The creatures weren't demons. They weren't aliens. They were something older, something awakened. And they aren't done. The wildfires get worse every year, don't they? That's not nature. It's not climate. It's them, spreading. I tried to go back once, just once. They rebuilt the trails. They restored the visitor center. They said the burn zone was safe now. But I know the truth. The glyphs are still in the bark. The ground still pulses if you listen. And sometimes, just before sunset, you can hear the forest whispering back. So if you're reading this, if you find yourself near Dry Hollow, and the air gets cold while the world burns, run. Don't look back. And whatever you do,
don't listen to the trees.